host, Ryan Miller, and for the past 15 years, I've helped hundreds of people to raise millions of dollars for their funds and for their startups. If you're serious about raising money, launching your business, or taking your life to the next level, this show will give you the answers so that you too can enjoy your pursuit of making billions. Let's get into it.
What would you ask if I gave you a few minutes to speak with a seasoned entrepreneur with 7 startups under his belt, as well as a 2-time Wall Street Journal bestseller? What would he tell you on starting and running a business? Well, I can promise you it's not what you think. In this week's episode of Making Billions, I bring on my dear friend, Brian Will. Brian is the guy that people go to in order to help them grow and scale their startup. I've asked him what the most important thing an entrepreneur needs to know, and he delivered a ton of wisdom. Finding great advice while launching our next deal are all critical skills we need in our pursuit of making billions. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller, and today I have my dear friend, Brian Will. Brian has launched 7 companies with massive exits. He's trained thousands of salespeople to generate billions of dollars in revenue. He is a 2-time Wall Street Journal author and runs a startup mastermind program for startups with at least 10 million in revenue to achieve unicorn status. So what this means is Brian is the guy you want to join forces with if you're looking to take your company to the big leagues. So Brian, welcome to the show, man.
Ryan Miller, thanks for having me, man. It's funny when my publicist called me and told me I was going to be on Making Billions. I was like, you are freaking kidding me. I follow this guy. I love this guy. I can't wait to do that show.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we certainly love you too. And thank you for the love on the show. We've got people in over 100 countries listening around the world, and I cannot wait to get into this. Brian Will has a ton of wisdom and information, guys. So you want to chime in there until the end, where he's going to give some of his top, most helpful tips from all of his experience on launching these things and giving books and masterminds and all that stuff. Tons of people from around the world pay a lot of money to spend just an hour with this guy. And fortunate for us, there's a lot that we're going to cover, and he's going to unpack a lot of his most valuable stuff. But before we get into that, Brian, where did it start for you?
Man, I always tell people I'm the most unconventionally educated guy out there, right? No college, honestly failed out of high school at the age of 16, got back in, managed to graduate, got kicked out of the house, had no place to go. So I joined the military, got off active duty, tried to hold jobs, couldn't do it. Started my first business when I was 21, when landscaping, built 7 franchises up. Did really well until it didn't, as I like to say. And when it crashed and lost everything and lots of lessons in that first failure. Moved into the insurance industry, sold my first company to a venture capital firm. It went public, back private. Sold my second company, was another insurtech company, to another venture capital firm. That's getinsured.com today. Built my third company. It was an online lead gen company. Sold it to a private equity firm. After that, built a BPO company that we sold to an Indian investment firm. Got into consulting, Fortune 500 sales and management consulting. Been all over the country doing that. Wrote a couple books, Wall Street Journal bestsellers, got into politics. And my latest venture is we've started a mastermind and coaching program for entrepreneurs from about 1 million to 10 million in revenue. That's what excites me today.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm like you, I'm a relationships guy. So those mastermind thing, I'm a sucker for all of them. So maybe talk a little bit about that. I mean, that's a phenomenal experience. You've written books, you've been in politics, you've done all these things. You've started businesses. Some are wildly successful, some not so much. That's the entrepreneur resume for sure. Now, that being said, I know a lot of people love to consume your books, your content. What's some of the cool stuff that you're up to today?
Yeah, so after I got out of consulting, I was kind of tired of the corporate consulting gig and actually joined a couple of masterminds myself and was doing a little coaching, kind of non-formal type of coaching for some entrepreneurs, doing some insurtech stuff and building businesses. And was talking to a coach of mine. He said, man, you need to take all this experience over the last 35 years, right? You built companies, you sold companies, you've done consulting, you've done all these things, you've written books. Take that knowledge and bring it down and build a mastermind out of it. Small masterminds, 10-person groups, and get into the one-on-one coaching. Take that experience and bring it down and help people grow and scale and level up their businesses. And so that's, we launched this thing about 4 or 5 months ago, and it's really taken off. So I'm pretty excited about what we're doing.
So what's some of the focus with that mastermind? What's it called? And what's some of the focus that in your mastermind that you found a lot of people appreciate?
Yeah, so ours is called the Force Multiplier Mastermind. And the force multiplier is a term we use in the military and in law enforcement. And essentially it's using tools or personnel, right, to amplify your business without increasing the workload of the entrepreneur. And I always use an easy example of, if you're going to go through a door that's locked, you can either throw your body against it, you can pound it with your fist, or you can pick up a sledgehammer. Take a sledgehammer, you're going to bash your way through the door. Think of the sledgehammer as the force multiplier, and think of that door are the challenges you're having every day. Do you want to try to force your way through them, or do you want to smash your way through them? We are the force multiplier. And we focus on 4 areas, right? We focus on strategic business direction. We focus on building high-performance sales teams. We focus on measured, profitable growth. And finally, we focus on what we call historical pattern recognition through your P&L analysis to predict what's going to happen in your business over the next 12 to 24 months. And that's really one of the keys to what we do, is that P&L analysis and prediction. So we can take a look at what you're doing today and already determine what's going to happen based on those decisions. So I like to, honestly, Ryan, I think masterminds, and this is me, they fall into 2 categories. There are relational masterminds and there are tactical masterminds. And ours is very tactical. I'm not here to build up your psyche. I'm not here to tell you you're a wonderful person. I'm here to tell you exactly what you need to do to make your business grow and make more money. That's what we do.
And that's why people flock to you and your podcast, which I understand is also has the same name, Force Multiplier. And so with your coaching and all these programs, a lot of entrepreneurs with 10 million in revenue or more, I mean, all entrepreneurs are welcome. We've talked offline, but the focus, the niche that you're able to help is once they get to that level, then they come to you and you help them with tactical, sales team, profit growth, pattern recognition, P&L, profit and loss analysis, all of those key tenets that really matter in a startup. You're able to just encircle them with all the things that matter, get them focused, and then help them get to the next level.
And here's the thing, right? If you're going to pick a coach or a mentor, you need to find somebody who's been there and done that. You need to find somebody who has succeeded doing what it is you're trying to do. I can't tell you what I haven't done. I can't tell you how to build a $1 billion company. I've never done it. I'm not going to pretend like I can. I'm not going to call myself a $1 billion guy like you have your $1 billion podcast. I can tell you how to take your company from 1 to 10 million, maybe 10 to 20. Our biggest company went to 60. But I can take that niche of people and tell them how to get to that next level. And then maybe they outgrow me and they have to go find somebody bigger. But at least I can get them to that level. So I will always only tell you what I can do, not what I have never done.
That's right. And so the focus is not necessarily going to $1 billion, but building the foundation that is required to go to that. And some will, some won't. I mean, that startup has nothing to do with us, but you understand as well as I do, and many of your clients, that right foundation. Without it, I mean, you could try and wish and hope and dream to go to $1 billion. The way I see it is if you're trying to build a $1 billion company, it's like building the tallest skyscraper in the world. If you're going to go really, really high in the sky before you can ever achieve those heights, you have to go to deeper depth. You have to go deeper and wider on the foundation before you can ever build something that high above the ground. And so what you do is you help them to go deeper and wider so that they can go higher. And so
think about construction, right? You can be the best home builder in your town building $10 million homes. That doesn't mean you can build the skyscraper you just talked about. But if you want to learn to be the best home builder, you don't go get a skyscraper builder because he doesn't know how to build the homes that are $10 million homes, right? Different people, different strengths, different personalities, different skill sets. So I focus on what I know and what I've done.
Yeah. And you've done very well and built a very impressive business for yourself. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll brag for you, buddy. So, that being said, I'm just wondering, out of everything that you've seen, I mean, you've had a vast swath of experience. I mean, 7 startups, all these books that everyone's buying and Wall Street Journal bestseller. I'm wondering if you had maybe 2 or 3 tips that you can think of. Let's really dig in. Let's go deep on that. Talking about going deeper and wider. Let's do it. What are some 2 or 3 tips, or as many as you can think of, as far as things that if someone truly comes in, they're fresh and they're just looking to really solidify that foundation, what would you do? What would you tell them?
I tell people this all the time, and this is a lot about what we focus on. If you are building a business, and I'll use my famous phrase here, right? You are who you are, and who you are got you where you are. If you want to go someplace different, if you want to level up, then you probably need to change who you are, because who you are isn't going to get you there, right? So if we take that as a base premise, then we better think about what our skill sets are, what our limitations are. Go get a coach that can help and teach you, learn the things you need to learn, right? So if we start with that premise, what are some of the things that most people in this $1 to $10 million area need to focus on the most? And my number one thing is the soft skills, not the hard skills, right? You can be a great developer, but that doesn't mean you know how to run a company. You can be a great plumber or electrician, but that doesn't mean you know how to run a company. You can be really, really great at whatever technical skill you've got, but that does not make you a CEO. You can be a visionary entrepreneur. That does not make you a CEO. So we focus a lot on these soft skills. And the biggest soft skill that we have to focus on when we're working with these folks right out of the gate are ego problems for the most part. Most of these entrepreneurs they're drivers. They're like, if we're building businesses, we're drivers. We're red. We go forward. We smash through. But the problem is that also brings with it a level of ego that sometimes gets in the way of these folks being able to level up their business, grow, and build what they want to build, right? A lot of these entrepreneurs think they have to be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? They think they have to have all the answers. If you have all the answers, you are, again, never going to grow because you clearly don't have all the answers. Even if you think you do, you don't have them. You need to find somebody that has better answers. Good CEOs learn to ask questions. You got to check your ego. You got to learn to ask questions. You got to bring in a coach or a mentor who can guide you and help you get past where you are onto the next level, right? I get into this thing about 100 lessons from where you are to success. And there are lessons you're going to have to learn, and you're going to have to check that ego and get somebody to help you, or you're going to fail a lot along the way.
Yeah, as they say, ego is the enemy. I think his name is Ryan Holiday that wrote that book. Getting a mentor, you mentioned that. I mean, I've done the executive route myself. Some people now that I that want to hear my advice, that's always the first thing I tell them. I said, look, you're a young buck and you're ready to crush it as an executive. And I'm sure your parents are proud, but just promise me one thing: beware of executive ego. You can creep up and you don't know you have it because everybody thinks you're special and you start to think so too. And I've been in executive meetings in startups where they will talk kind of rough about some of the employees, right? And it's real talk. And I remember being in this meeting and saying, well, are they that lazy or unproductive? Or is that just a function of the conditions their leaders put them in? Yeah, that made me popular. So all the leaders who built bad process and policies can be a bit of a problem. And so that executive ego creates blind spots or biases. And through that executive ego, so when you start a business and you make a few bucks and you're feeling cool about yourself, just make sure that you take, as Jocko Willink says, extreme ownership. Make sure that you own your business and the outcomes. Don't sit there in an executive meeting with the door closed and just criticize everybody who's trying to help you. Actually take responsibility, drop the ego, and you might be able to see your business and your people in new and profitable ways. Would you agree?
I agree 100%. I have found this also in a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Particularly entrepreneurs that launch a company and they have some specialized knowledge in what they do. When they're trying to build a team, they make the mistake of thinking that the people they hire are going to be exactly as good as they are and think exactly like they think. And that's never, ever, ever going to happen. You're never going to have anybody be as good as you if you're the entrepreneur visionary building and launching a company. I always use the 80% rule. If I can find somebody that's 80% as good as me in whatever area that I want to pass off, that is a win. That's a huge win because it takes 80% of that off of me and allows me to go do what I do best, which is continue to build the company. But they when they say lazy, it's because they think they're not doing it exactly the way the executive or the CEO is doing it. And that's the problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. Yep.
That is a problem. So you got to get over that and understand nobody's ever going to be as good as you when you're replacing yourself and all the pieces in your company. If they're 80%, they're good. And then you got to let them get in there. You got to let them learn. You got to let them fail. Every time they fail, you have paid a price to educate them to be better at what they do. If you get an open door, people come in and out, it's because you never let them learn. You never let them get where they needed to go. You never let them become the person they need to be to replace you in that organization in whatever field you've brought them in to replace you, right? That's a big mistake I see entrepreneurs make all the time.
That's right. As you can see, Brian really knows his stuff, and we've only just gone on tip number 1. What else have you, if someone came to you and they said, hey, I just hit my 10 million mark, I feel like I'm ready to qualify for your counsel to get me to the next level, what's something else that you would share with them?
So one of my favorite stories, if you've ever read Jack Welch's book, right? Jack Welch, one of the most biggest CEOs, most profitable, most successful CEOs. Yeah. If you read his book or read autobiographies about Jack Welch was famous for asking questions. That's what he did. He would wander, we call it management by wandering, right? He'd wander around his organization and he would ask people questions. There were stories of his friends and they would say, we would invite Jack to a party and everybody couldn't wait till Jack Welch got there and they all wanted him to speak and Jack would never speak. He would just ask questions and he gathered information and he put all the stuff that he learned, just walk around his organizations or whatever, asking questions. I said this before, too many executive entrepreneurs think they need to have all the answers and they need to stop and start asking more questions. And that is a huge one. But asking questions is big.
Yeah. And, asking questions and finding that out, that really reminds me of a lot of cognitive biases. Now, any of these shortcuts, these heuristics that we have, it's just our brain's way of accelerating and synthesizing information quickly, but also in a predictable way. But often those little shortcuts, analysis or judgments in our mind can also create blind spots from new scenarios, which starting a business probably throws you into a lot of new scenarios and uncomfortable stuff. But in order to do that, a lot of these decisions that we make, they come from our filters. Would you agree? Yeah. And those filters just come from a lot of information that we consume. What have you seen to help people in this area to help avoid blind spot bias?
I have, if you think about this personal filter is what I call in my book, and you touched on it there. Every bit of information that's ever gone into your head creates a filter, and that filter accepts and rejects information in real time, behind the scenes, without you even thinking about it, right? And I always say, the example I always use is, Ryan, have you ever met anybody and it seems like everything they touch turns to gold?
Yeah.
Have you ever met anybody and you've seen like everything they touch just falls apart and they can't win to save their life?
So I've seen that.
They're both people. The difference between the two of them is nothing more than their personal filter inside their head, accepting and rejecting information in a different manner. And they accept and reject information based on everything that's ever gone into their head beforehand, right? Every book they've ever read, every person they were associated with, every boss, every teacher, their parents, their childhood, everything in your life has created this filter that accepts and rejects information. And if you've had success, your filter becomes a success filter and it starts to accept information and use it successfully. If you've never been successful, then you don't know how to process information to turn it into a successful outcome. And if you are a failure all your life, then you're going to do nothing but continue to fail because that's all your filter knows how to do, right? So we tell people, if you're launching a business or if your business isn't growing the way you want it to, it's because your personal filter is rejecting or accepting information that is keeping you where you're at or not allowing you to grow. You need to make an active decision that you don't know what you're doing. You may need to make an active decision that you're going to find somebody to help you, this coach or mentor, or in my case, I read hundreds of books before I found my first coach and mentor, right? And you need to actively make yourself take that information in and not reject it. Like, I remember the first time I read Think and Grow Rich, and this was 30 years ago, and there's a section on mastermind. I can go show you my book right now. I X'd out the entire chapter. I said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That is a true story. It's literally, I took a pen and marked it all. I said, I don't believe this crap. My brain wasn't ready. Today I belong to 2 masterminds and I run one, right? The filter has changed over time. So if you're not where you are, if you're not where you want to be, you need to understand it's your filter that's the issue. And you need to change that filter or make active decisions that you're going to change it by allowing a coach or a mentor to come in. And by the way, you better vet that coach and mentor. Do not bring in somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about, that's never been successful. Don't let people put information in your brain unless they are proven doing what it is you want to do. And then you need to listen to them and let them help you make decisions. And that your filter will change over time. I'll give you an example. People ask me, well, do you have problems with your filter these days? And I said, I'll give you a perfect example. I wrote my last book. I designed the cover of my book. All the success I've had, right? Huge success. I wrote the cover of the book and I sent it to the publicist and she goes, this cover sucks. We're not using it. I said, no, it doesn't. I designed that cover. That is a good cover. And she said, no, Brian, this cover sucks. We're not using this cover. And I argued with her. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute. She's done hundreds of these. I've done zero, right? My ego was stopping me from listening to somebody. No, she wasn't super successful, hadn't made millions and millions and millions of dollars, but this is what she's good at. And then I went, you're right. I'm sorry. And she redesigned the cover and the book's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. I mean, that sometimes you have to stop yourself and go, wait. I need to listen to somebody else.
You know, Steve Jobs famously said, we don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do.
Yes.
And
exactly.
so, you know, that was a very base, as we call it. We don't say humble anymore. We say base. So that was a very base comment from the late, great Steve Jobs. That reminds me. And so early in my career, I've actually never talked about this live on air, but to people that I coach, I do talk about this often, is in the early days when I started to learn success. And I always say two things. Number one, success is an inside job, meaning it's a function of your mental conditioning, right? And your emotional habits, your intellectual habits, whatever these habits are, success is an inside job. So great. Wow. Sure. It's poetic and it makes sense, but how do I actually pull that off? So maybe I'll inject a tip into yours if you'll allow me. So with that, with these filters and everything, a lot of it comes down to conditioning, right? These automatic think quick, right? There's, I think fast, think slow. There's another book and a lot of these things that we put in place. And so one of the things that I did, and this is super fun. You can have a lot of fun with this wherever you are in the world. Please do this. In the early days when I was trying to prime my psychology for success, I was like, I'm going to do this through celebration. And I adopted the saying. And when I was an executive and all the coaches and all the stage stuff that I do, one of the big ones I say is when we celebrate, we accelerate. And so through celebration, we begin to condition our mind to what you were talking about to build that filter of success, right? So we say, yeah, you want to have a filter of success. Well, yeah, okay, that's good to know. But how? How do I build a filter of success? Well, one of the ways is, hey, I got out of bed at, I set my alarm at 5 o'clock and my feet hit the floor at 5 o'clock. I didn't wait till 5:15 or 5:03. Celebrate. That's a success. And maybe you celebrate it by listening to your favorite music, right? A celebration doesn't have to be throwing a big party and spending millions of dollars. Maybe it does. There's nothing wrong with that if that's you. But some of it is a nice meal with someone you care about, or calling an old friend could be a form of celebration. You're anchoring yourself to getting more of what you love by doing the things you know are necessary. And when you celebrate, your brain's like, we need to do more of that. The stuff that made us successful. I like these celebrations, getting dopamine. I'm getting all these wonderful brain chemicals. And you start to build a filter. You start to build this heuristic in your mind. And pretty soon you go on autopilot, just like you mentioned.
I want to take that one step further, Ryan, because I do a whole thing on this and it's called setting goals. My last podcast was called Setting Goals, right? And too many people screw up their goal setting and they turn themselves into failures because of improper goal setting, right? And by that, we've probably all heard you need to set great, big, hairy, audacious goals, right? We've also heard your goals need to be so big you have no idea how to accomplish them. I've heard you have to set goals that scare you. First of all, why would I want my goals to scare me?
Yeah.
And why would I have goals that I don't know how to achieve? That just means I've now set myself up for something I'm never going to do, which makes me a failure every day for the rest of my life. So I have squashed that down a little bit and said, success is a progression. It's a progression of ideas, thoughts, and executions, right? And I use the example, if I want to build a $100 million company, I don't start out building a $100 million company. I start out building a $1 million company. And with the goal, so if it's 100, it's $1 million in 6 months, it's $5 million in a year, it's 10 million in 2 years, it's 20 million in 3 years. And I set a progression of goals to get me to the end. And when I built the end, then I reverse engineer it. Look at what the company's going to look like when I get to that $100 million mark. How many employees, how many sales, whatever that company looks like. And then I back my way all the way back down to where I am today and set a progression of goals in order to get there. And every time I hit those progressions, I do exactly what you just said. I celebrate, right? So I know that if my goal is 100, but I have a goal of 1, I have a goal of 5, I have a goal of 10, I have a goal of 20, I get to win every single time I hit those progressive goals. And then when I get to the end, it wasn't such a big deal to do, right? That's progression. That makes you a winner every time you hit a goal as opposed to a loser every single damn day.
I love that. I see behind you, it says execute, failure, and success. Is there any meaning to that? And maybe you can kind of unpack what that means to you.
Yeah, that's a mantra of mine. So here's another one that I hate. You have to fail to succeed. You ever heard that? Failure is bred out of success is bred out of failure. And that's semi-accurate, but it's not exactly accurate, right? If you fail and you don't learn, you're going to fail again. And if you don't learn, you're going to fail again. Success is a product of failing and learning and then never making that mistake again. And then you fail, you execute, right? So it's execute, fail, succeed. You execute again, you fail, you learn. You execute again, you fail, you learn. This is 100 steps from where you are to success. But success is a product of learning from the failure, not just failing. Failing isn't going to help you. So too many people miss the learning piece.
Yeah, they just want to execute and success. And when it doesn't exactly work out, they're not sure what to do. But if you expect
it took me 20 years to sell the first company, right? And then I looked like an overnight success. I call it the 20-year overnight success. But there was a lot of execution fail before we got to that first exit.
A little variant to that, I'll say I've worked my whole life to be an overnight success.
Exactly.
So, a lot of people are like, man, how'd you do that? I was like, yeah, you're asking now. Were you asking for the last 15 years? No. The reason why is, one, you're probably 12. But the other reason is because for the last 15 years, I was grinding away. I was still about the process. I was learning, trying to get better and level up. And then eventually you reach that escape velocity and you have liftoff, brother. So,
and you say, don't judge your chapter 1 by my chapter 20.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So as we wrap things up, are there any other last comments, maybe ways people can reach out to you or where they can find you, anything at all?
Yeah. So my website is www.brianwillmedia.com, brianwillmedia.com. My podcast, my blogs, my books are on there. My mastermind information is on there. Pretty much everything about me is on the website. That's the easiest way to do it. So if anybody's interested in a mastermind from that well-funded startup through $10 million in revenue, or interested in the books or anything else, jump in there, take a look. If you have any questions, drop me a DM.
Perfect. So listening to Brian and following his wisdom, number one, just be careful. Watch that executive ego or that founder ego or just any ego. Watch yourself. Hire smart people so they can tell you what to do, but also ditch the ego and be based enough where you're willing to listen to people that may have a better eye for design. The other one is learn to ask better questions. You could be like Jack Welch and really ask those people that work for you or people around you or people like Brian who have just done it before. They're not in your company, but they've certainly been in your shoes before. Learn to ask really, really good questions. I used to do this in the early days when I would pick people's brains and be that annoying little college graduate. I would pre-plan questions for the meeting. I was very, very prepared. Please do that or whatever it is. Just make sure that you are able to ask good questions and get those high quality answers. And finally, don't just execute and fail, execute and learn. That is the point. You do these things and you too will be well on your way in your pursuit of making billions.
Wow, what a show. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Now, if you haven't done so already, be sure to leave a comment and review on new ideas and guests you want me to bring on for future episodes. Plus, why don't you head over to YouTube and see extra takes while you get to know our guests even better. And make sure to come back for our next episode where we dive even deeper into the people, the process, and the perspectives of both investors and founders. Until then, my friends, stay hungry, focus on your goals, and keep grinding towards your dream of making billions.